Well, my name is Jennie and I'm a Professor of Human Nutrition, and I've been here at the University of Sydney for 30 years. I teach students who are doing dietetics and also the medical students, and I do research, particularly on carbohydrates in nutrition. Well, I first became aware that I had a hearing loss when I was about 13 or 14. I recognised that my friends were hearing things that I wasn't hearing, like they said, "Your mother's calling." And I thought, why can't I hear them if they can? So shortly after that, I was tested and they showed that I did have a significant loss, and they actually prescribed a hearing aid.
What are those blood samples for?
And I actually did an audiogram, and I recognised for the first time that I was really, really significantly hearing impaired.
No, we did the samples.
It knocked me around a bit, actually. It made me realise I should be doing something about it. As my hearing declined, which it did gradually over the next 20 years, it gradually got worse and worse. I was prescribed more and more powerful hearing aids. At one stage I did a lip reading course. I was prescribed 2 hearing aids at one stage, and then suddenly, when I was about 45, one ear went completely deaf overnight, or at least in the space of a few days. And that's when life really became terribly, terribly hard.
She was becoming more and more aware, I think, of her disability, because there was that time when the hearing in the one ear went completely, and she was struggling with lip reading, but she wasn't a brilliant lip reader. She could only make so much use of it. So I think she was, rather despondent and not joining in conversations like like ordinary people do.
I read about cochlear implants in the paper, and I was really interested in them. I read everything I could get my hands on, actually, about them. And I went and had the implant done, and it was the best thing I could possibly have done. I knew to expect that it would take a long time to really come up to speed, because that ear that was implanted had been deaf for 10 years. And they explained to me that all the nerve pathways would have been asleep for a long time. But the fact was that I could hear her. The fact was I could understand with an ear that was absolutely deaf. And so I went home extremely happy.
After the cochlear implant, she sort of flowered, and she was promoted to be a personal chair, which is very rare in this university. It's at a very high standard.
They went ahead with the second implant, and that's the second best thing that's ever happened to me. Now it's 4 months later, and I can have a telephone conversation.
Hi, it's Jennie Miller speaking.
Having 2 implants has made a big difference. I feel much more confident, particularly with being able to cope in challenging situations. When you put them together, there's some sort of synthesis goes on in the middle of the brain, which makes sound clearer and louder, and I can localize sound. I know whether it comes from one side of the room or the other side of the room, or from the back of me or in front. At work, people would forget I was hearing impaired. They call me from one end of the lab to the other, and they expect me to hear what they were saying. I think round meeting tables, sometimes there are 10 and 12 people round the table. And now I have a setting, a special program on the cochlear implant that I use during those meetings. What it does is it really amplifies the voice of the person who's down the other end of the table. And I use that when I'm giving lectures too, and I want to make sure that I can hear the person at the back of the lecture hall. I can hear better in the car, and you know, a lot of your conversations take place in the car. I listen to the radio in the car, and I love the fact that I can hear everything they say, even though there's lots of traffic noise around. I can hear all the numbers, the share market prices and things like that. Just the things I couldn't hear before, they were all distorted. In fact, one of the most noticeable differences is being able to hear on the telephone.
Hello?
The telephone before the cochlear implant was a source of torture. The telephone is part of life in the 21st century, and if you can't use the telephone, you become a dependent. It becomes much more difficult.
Oh, hi, Liz.
One didn't phone, but she didn't want to use the telephone. No, it was not. You didn't do that with Jennie. Somehow I managed to go to her room or send her a note or something, but no, she'd said she didn't want to use the telephone. She said it's agony to me.
Having the implants, having both implants, has brought me wonderful communication with my fellow human beings.
So now she's, she's really a happy and very active person. She goes all over the world and lectures, and she's very, very busy.
But the fact is that if I didn't have the cochlear implant, I would not be working now. I would not have written all these books. I would not be doing the things that I really enjoy. I love my subject. I love nutrition. I love reading about it. I like teaching it. I like doing the research. And frankly, I couldn't be me if I didn't have the 2 cochlear implants. I think the thing that stands out was that day I was all by myself at the dining room table and studying something down and didn't know what was happening around me, and then saying, "What's that sound?" and looking up and seeing it was the rain. I don't know why, but that stands out, because people that are hearing impaired don't hear the rain, and it's a lovely, soft, comforting sound.